The views expressed on our programs are not necessarily those of WVON, Midway Broadcasting Corporation, or our participating sponsors.
It's the Wake Up Show with the Illinois Black Chamber of Commerce on Chicago's essential storyteller, WVON.
Welcome to the Wake Up Show, Chicago. Rise and shine. It's the Wake Up Show, where every sunrise is a call to action. Powered by the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce, we are the champions of change, advocating for diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility in the world of corporate and government contracting. It's not just a show, it's a movement. So get ready for another dynamic journey. And empowerment. Ladies and gentlemen, Larry Iver. Hey, welcome to the Wake Up Show. Hey, my name is Larry Ivory. I am the President CEO of the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce and Chairman of the Board of the National Black Chamber of Commerce. Let me get right into this. Let me give a shout out and make sure we introduce my co-host, my team. I start with MC and let's go to Lord Mike, and then we're going to rock and roll.
Good morning, good gentlemen. Good morning, radio audience. This is MC Pearson from 25M Printing, and we're going to break down some money on today, some budgeting on today. We're going to get it in. What's going on, Lord Mike?
Peace and blessings to the true and living. I woke up on the right side of the daisy, so I am winning this morning. I'm so glad to be on, everybody. Truly just about window dressing right now. We got the Brain Trust up here. We got esteemed guests over here, over there. And, of course, we got the one and only illustrious President Larry Ivory, if I get my box finger together. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Hey, let me just get right into this, guys. And we have such incredible content. You know, what we're really proud of is that the Chamber stays focused on Black economic empowerment. And I emphasize Black economic empowerment because that's what we focus on, is how are Black people doing it? How do we strengthen Black business and Black people? Because we know if we help Black businesses, we strengthen Black communities and we strengthen Black people, and we also strengthen America all at the same time. But let me get right to it. We got some phenomenal guests, but we're going to be talking today about Lobby Day and our reporting system for the Capital Development Board, who does all the vertical construction for the state of Illinois. And we were in the meeting with them. We're going to talk about that. We got some esteemed guests who were in those meetings to give their perspective on how things went and how things happen at the same time. So let me just start with, first of all, let me start with Vincent Gilbert. Mr. Gilbert, say hello to us, man. Tell us what's going on.
Let me just say it's always a pleasure and an honor when I get a chance to address the WBON family. God, thank you for having Melanie Span Cooper and her husband Pierre that gives us this open, free forum. Thank you, Larry.
You're welcome. And we also have with us Perrin Wetzel. Perrin, say hello to us and tell us a little bit about what you do, man.
Thank you very much, Larry, for having me on this show. I like to acknowledge your leadership and in regards to helping Black businesses become more successful and being able to have these contracts with the state of Illinois. Myself, I have been an entrepreneur for the last 52 years. Presently, I have an international accounting firm, and we provide accounting services for clients all over the country. And that's one of the critical things that a lot of businesses don't understand is how you have your tax strategy is going to affect how you'll be able to grow your business and be able to be successful. And I think that what you're doing, Larry, is fundamental to businesses doing that.
Next, we have with us Tony Lipskin. Is Tony on the call? If he's not, we'll keep moving. We have a couple other guests. Tony Lipskin's going to come on, but we also have Maddie Carter, and we may even have one other guest. But let me get right to it. Vincent, you and I was going over some numbers, and to the team, we did a report on the Department of Corrections last week, right, MC?
Absolutely.
Okay. And I want to give you guys some numbers. So, Vincent, give us the numbers that we have in terms of the Department of Correction first. And we're only going to touch on this for a moment because we're meeting with the Department of Correction next week sometime. So, Vincent, give us a little heads up in terms of when you take a look at the Department of Correction, what do you see from the data that you got?
Well, Larry, the Department of Corrections, their fiscal 2023, the total spend 1,525,680,165, and their percentage of the goal achieved was 2.5%. Now, their spend for African American males, 2,139,497. Their spend with African American females was $480,000. The Hispanic male spend was $23,000. The Hispanic female spend was zero. The Asian American male spend was 1,314,923. The Asian female spend was 2,024. The female,
We're going to give our audience a chance to digest those numbers as we go
yeah.
into the break. And when we come back, we're going to continue with this. Thank you for listening to the Wake Up Show Chicago, powered by the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce. Welcome back to the Wake Up Show Chicago, powered by the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce. Now, you know what, Prayers? Before we went to break, we was breaking open these budget numbers and how much of our tax dollars are actually being spent at these various government agencies. Let's keep that rolling, Prayers.
Let me just ask this question, Vincent. Since you have the data in front of you of a $1.5 billion budget, and of the reported, because the Black Caucus did a great job in increasing the minority spend from 20% to 30%, a 50% increase. Now, here's the problem: since 51% to 53% of the people incarcerated are people who are Black, then my question is that what percentage of that, when you mention the percentages there, that's kind of alarming when you take a look at the fact that we gave the Department of Correction a pretty solid rating. What they failed at is in terms of participation, which means that white males, if we ain't getting it and the Asian ain't getting it and others aren't getting it, then white males are fundamentally getting all of it virtually in terms of it. What do you guys think about that?
Larry, let me give you just a little. I had the pleasure of serving on the transition team with Governor Jim Edgar and Bill Garf, the great former owner of the Citizen newspaper, is now owned and ran by his son and his daughter-in-law. But I had the chance to actually do the analysis on correction. So let me tell the family a couple of things that they don't know or may not know. The WVM family, I know some of them do know this. First of all, those populations in those small towns, the prison is the lifeblood for that small town. As it relates to voting, the inmates count as residents of those small towns. In some of those towns that the prisons are in, the inmate population is larger than the town's population. Let that sink in for a second. Also, the commissary. When I did the initial, when Edgar was in, what, 15 years ago, there were either one or two black vendors who supplied products to the commissary. Now, the commissary sells the inmates everything from soup to nuts. That's a tremendous opportunity for black businesses. But how many black businesses in 2024 have contracts? Oh, yes.
Terms of the healthcare contracts that they
Correct.
give out to take care of the inmates in terms of healthcare, which there's been a company that's had that contract for umpteen years that has a 1% participation goal in that contract. So let's move from the Department of Correction because we're here today to focus on the Capital Development Board. And for all our listening audience, the Capital Development Board is the arm that does build all of the vertical construction for the state of Illinois. So when the University of Illinois, any university, junior colleges, any VA centers, all that is done by the Capital Development Board. And today, since we had a meeting with the team on April the 10th, we were in Springfield, all these particular individuals on this call got a chance to give their. So what I'm going to ask you to do real quick so we can move a conversation, keep the conversation moving. I want you to give me briefly, in your words, how did you think the meeting went with the Capital Development Board? And then we're going to come back and MC and get down to how do we grade them and ask our members here what kind of grade you give them in these particular sectors. So why don't we start with Tony Limskin? He's back on. Antonio, say hello to the WVON listening family, and tell us about your experience on the lobby day with the Capital Development Board. What did you think?
Yes, sir. Mr. Ivory, thank you so much for this time to share with your team and with all the distinguished guests. I say that traveling to that meeting with legislators and being in a part of that Capital Development Board meeting was one of the highlights of my life because I had an opportunity to be exposed to how Illinois does business. And uh, new resident back in Illinois, had the pleasure to work with the state of Indiana for an extended period of time and see the flow of Indiana and how things work with Indiana, and then to sit in the Capital Development Board and see how that is being played out. It gave me a deeper understanding as it relates to how things work in Illinois, which I was quite shocked, to be honest, because of the way things are done. It just seems like, and just my personal opinion, things are so antiquated and outdated, systematically, electronically, that it was even though it was a privilege to be in there. It was also very disturbing for me as a business person to see how things are going. And I have examples of that. I don't want to be too long, but if you would like for me to share an example, I will.
We'll come back to you real quick.
Okay. All
So
right.
let's go to Parent. Give me your perspective on the meeting with the Capital Development Board.
Well, I would like to say this, that they seem to want to listen to you, but the actions, it seems like Illinois is slow on the action. The numbers say that. When we looked at the number regards to the correction division, they have a $1.5 billion budget, and less than $10 million goes towards minorities altogether, all minorities. So there's a disconnect between what they're saying and what they're actually doing. And one of the reasons we wanted to go there is to find out where that disconnect is so that we can have better communication with them so that we can correct those disconnects and move forward.
Let me just make sure we want to make sure we're accurate in terms of the Capital Development Board. We know that there's more than $10 million they're spending. I mean, with the Department of Corrections. So we'll go back and give you the real numbers on that later on. But we got Maddie Carter who's on the line. Maddie, tell us who you are and give us your insight in terms of what you thought about the Capital Development Board meeting.
Hi, everyone. Like my name is Maddie Carter. I'm the owner of Steer Liberty Consultant. I want to first say I appreciate the opportunity to go downstate to Lobby Day. I believe the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce is doing so much for the city of Chicago and throughout Illinois, and I appreciate Mr. Ivory on so many levels. I got the opportunity to participate in a lot of his events, and this one right here in particular demonstrated his seriousness in bringing about Black contracts and getting more opportunity. My experience with the Capital team is that I believe that when, like Mr. Perrin said, was the disconnect. They were there to listen. I appreciate, like I said, the communication and the relationship that Mr. Ivory had with Mr. Jim. I believe that it was existing. He was also trying to transition the role from his, because he's retiring, to the new person that was coming about. But again, the disconnect was there because the information that was explained and displayed on by our people, by the lobby, I'm sorry, by the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce was, uh, you know, where do we come and play a role? And then we had questions. I'm sorry, it was one question in particular. I can't say verbatim, but it was something that uh, the team with Illinois Capital Budget didn't know of. You know what I mean? I'm sorry, I don't really want to talk about it because I can't verbatim say it, but I can just say they needed more information from our team to understand our own needs. So if they didn't understand and they didn't have the information, then how is that going to help us long term when it comes about when we desperately need more money to funding, desperately need things to help us, as a Black minority? Again, we are at the lowest level of the chart. I noticed that even with the Hispanic rates, they were still so many percentages ahead of us. So as Black contractors out here doing exact same type of work and have the same experience, same education background, we need to be more recognized in our experiences of what our capability are, and it needs to be pushed not so much at the bottom. We need to be exposed more. We need those bidding contracts to come through for those commercial lots and all of that.
Like that, come back with the rating. Vincent, give me your perspective on the Capital Development Board from your perspective.
Well, from my perspective, Larry. I've been going down to Lobby Day with you almost for over
Pretty
13
well.
years,
Yeah.
and so 12 or 13 years ago, they got an F. 10 years ago, they got an F. Now, not only have they made some improvements, we had one of our great engineering contractors 5 or 6 years ago. They actually won the award. I think they protested, won that, and still didn't get the contract. But there's hope for the Capital Development Board because they have a African American James Cockrell that does a good job. And I won't steal your thunder, Larry, on the person that's going to replace Jim. So we were always well received in the last 5 years. Very well received. I agree with the other callers, though. I mean, with the other participants, a lot of smoke. But they expressed an interest to do pilot programs and to do some of those types of things that Ms. Carter talked about and Brother Wetzel talked about to even the playing field. And so I'm hopeful.
Absolutely. Hey, MC, why don't you take us to the first question? And I'm pushing the envelope because I want to get to people's perception and how we rated them in terms of the rating. So, MC, if you want to give, or if Lord Mike, if you have it, I'll start with the first question. Was leadership at the table? And they get a score from 0 to 5. Our rating system is a 30-point rating system. Anything from 30 to 25 gives you an A. Anything under 25 to 20 gets you a B. Anything under 20 to 15 gets you a C. And anything under that gets you 15 to 10 gets you a D. And anything under that gets you an F. So if we take a look at the first thing that we evaluated was, were decision makers in the meeting? What say you guys?
Yeah.
5.
A 5. Okay. Everybody else, I think we'd all agree that all the decision makers were there in the meeting, from the legal counsel to all the decision makers within the Capitol Bill Board. So they had their whole team there in the meeting. So they get a 5 for that. The other question that they had was about transparency. So when we think about transparency to the team, and this is what we're asking is you guys to give us an opinion. Were they open and transparent on the questions that were being asked of them? And they can get anywhere from a 0 to a 5. And we'll go with ladies first. So, Ms. Carter, what say you?
Like I said, information has been brought to them, so I don't think they're really abreast on what our need specifically is because the focus is not there. So I give a 2.
A 2. Okay. Antonio?
Yes, I have to agree with about a 2.
Okay.
Where they are. Yeah, that's about all I can give right now.
Okay. Perrin.
Well, I would give
Perrin.
him
I
a
think I
2.
misbutchered his first name. Perrin, is it
Perrin, that's
Perrin?
okay. It's Perrin. Perrin.
Perrin. Okay. Perrin,
No problem. I would give him a 2.5. You know,
2.5.
yeah.
Vincent, what do you give him?
1.
A 1. Okay.
I asked the question that I agree with Ms. Carter that they totally couldn't answer. Matter of fact, if they didn't have, to Ms. Carter's point, this is very important. When you have a diverse staff, you have people on the team that have lived the life that we've lived. And none of the leadership could answer the question. They had to defer that answer to Mr. James Cockrell, an African American. And his answer was, well, we can deal with that at another meeting, Mr. Gilbert. And so on that one,
Okay. MC, you got the other questions. I don't have them in front of me.
I got you, Doc. So next question is this. Did they have diversity in their leadership? Did you guys see
Yeah.
people who look like us?
Yeah. You know, I jump out there with that one first because I think that relates to providing transparency, just as Vincent just mentioned there. I didn't see a lot of diversity, you know, as I look back on there. I didn't see a lot of diversity in terms of Black people in leadership role around that table, right? I didn't see a whole lot of. I saw some. James Cockrell was one of them, but ironically, he was sitting over there with us. And at the same time, you heard what he said in terms of transparency. Well, we'll talk about that at another time. So I'd have to give them a 2 on that one there, on how diverse that their leadership team was.
Okay. Now, let's keep in mind there's 2 things in terms of diversity. Diversity, and we're putting this in Black perspectives because diversity, they had women, they had white males, they had a number of people. The legal counsel was also African American who was sitting with us. So they had some diversity across the board. But did they have enough diversity from our perspective? That's what you're responding to. Let's go ahead, Antonio. What kind of rate would you give them, real quick?
Well, I'm still about the 1-2 mark, Larry, and just far as trying to get the business done with Black people, still suspect. I do, I can't go back to how far some of our guests have dealt with them. I can only have a fresh perspective walking through the door, and I do think there's some hope there. However, I'm kind of reserved because I would like to see some of that hope coming to fruition. I'm just used to getting things done.
Okay. Perrin,
I'm gonna go with a 2
okay.
because they didn't have they didn't have the right diversity.
Okay. Vincent,
Larry, I'll preface my comment 2.5 with what you said. Diversity means across the board. And so I saw white women in power positions. I saw Black males. I saw white men. I don't know if I saw any Hispanics or Asians, but I give them a 2.5 on their
okay.
total diversity.
Okay. The next question, MC.
The next question is, did they provide transparency? But I think we touched on that
Answer that.
already.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So let's move on to show the willingness to meet with the chamber on an ongoing basis?
What do you give them on that? Start with you, Vincent.
Well, I was about to say, Larry, I was going to defer to you because you would be the one that would know any future meetings, any past meetings, any present meetings, or any current meetings. And I don't think, yeah,
They are definitely open. They said that in the meeting that they would love to meet, that
yeah,
they'd like to see more people participating. They're open to the conversation. So I would have to give them a 5 from my perspective, but
I give
I'd
a
like to
five.
give a
I give
5.
a five
Okay.
also. Yeah, I
A
go with that.
parent, what do you give them?
I would give him a 5 as well.
Tony,
Yes, sir. I'm gonna go
Antonio?
with the 5. I'm gonna go with the 5 because I just want to keep, like Jesse Jackson say, keep hope alive.
Okay. Hey, Maddie, last but not least, Maddie, what do you think?
I definitely give a 5 because they were open to give email addresses and everything like that to stay in communication and to submit more questions that we had that we couldn't answer at that moment.
Absolutely.
And
MC,
if I
next
could,
question. Go ahead,
and
Mike.
I apologize for interrupting. If I could, I'd certainly give them a 5 too, especially because we've got the Capital Development Board right here in our chat box that's actually with us today. So as far as willingness to continue meeting and to stay engaged, there they are.
Oh,
Fantastic.
absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. Fantastic. The next question.
Next question. Are they currently achieving their diversity goal, including with African Americans?
Okay. This is again a question to every. We'll talk. We'll start with. Why don't we start with Perrin? You go first in terms of what you think.
I
And I
think
know you
I
may
would
not
give
have the data in front of you, but this
I would give
is
him a
subjective.
1. I would give them a 1 because I I don't know what it's like now, but at one point in time, I know the state of Illinois was one of the worst creditors in the state as far as paying people. So that's what
Okay.
I would give them.
Perrin says one. Antonio.
How can you go against the accountant? I got to go with the 1. And it's scary from a business position how long it takes to get paid. That is really something that really needs to be looked at. And again, I said I'm
Well, let me
originally
clarify.
from.
Let me clarify that real quick, because since I know this backwards and forward, the one of the things that the Capital Development Board has done, they never had a problem with paying people. Never. That's never been their problem. Their budget is their budget, and they didn't have the problem. Even when there was problems with the state, you got paid with the Capital Development Board. So their payment problem has never been a hit, never been a problem for them. So I just know that from my position and working with the Capital Development Board and my role on the Procurement Policy Board and talking to contractors. That's never been their weakness. They've always been able to pay based upon their budget. Vincent?
Well, I want to, since we have the accountant, in God we trust. Everybody else bring data. And according to their data, the acting executive director, Alexandria Wilson, who is the acting executive director for Illinois Commission on Equity and Inclusion, I want to give this site to the WVON family because I know you're going to go do your research. This is a 134-page document. It's very extensive and very detailed. The site is 30 ILCS 575/8F. Let me say that again. 30 Illinois Connotated Statutes 575/8F. And she's the one that does the annual expenditure report for the Business Enterprise Program for minorities, women, and persons with disabilities. She says that they're only achieving 3% of the goal. I believe her. 1, or maybe even a 0.5.
Okay, 0.5. MC, the next question.
Hey, Doc, we covered them all.
Oh, we covered them all? Okay, so we
Oh, no,
covered
no, no.
all
We
the.
do got one more. My bad. We do got one more. It was I had to scroll down. Are they open to discussing how to improve and ask what they could do differently?
Let's go ahead and start with Vincent. Go first, Vincent.
Yeah, I think that's is directly related to the series of questions before. The guests have all stated that I think somebody quoted my good friend Reverend Jesse L. Jackson. I sat on that legal committee for 15 years. Keep hope alive, but I'll go with my previous statement. In God we trust. Everybody else send data, and the data that they sent says 3%. So
Okay. Perrin,
one.
repeat the question again.
Oh yeah, no. That question was there open? Are they open to
Right,
talking? Right.
right.
Oh, give them a five. Give them a
Five.
five.
Okay. Perrin.
Yeah.
Yes, open to talking. Uh, yes, but achieving their goals is a different conversation.
Okay. Maddie.
Like Mr. Purin said and Mr. Vincent said at the same time. So I'm about at a 4 based on their knowledge base and that data shown because Mr. Vincent read that they are the 3%. And Ms. Purin said, yeah, they're for doing this for us and following up. But, you know,
The
is it
proof is in the
possible?
pudding.
The proof's in the pudding. So I'm gonna
Okay.
say 4, just on
Okay. Antonio.
Yes, like I was stating before, there need okay. It's good to talk, and that's fine. However, making actions of what's being said is another thing, and I think that they should look at other state models on how. I don't know. I don't think it's a challenge that they pay. My question is, how long or is it taking for the money to arrive in the person's bank account? And that's something I think we need to look at.
Larry,
Okay.
if I can just, oh, I'm sorry.
Go right
Sorry.
ahead, Vincent.
I was about to say, if we can, and Larry, you're humble, but just like with the Toll Road Authority and many other state agencies, the toll road used to be the worst. But years ago, doing those negotiations early on with the Capital Development Board, Larry, we put in prompt payment provisions. I went to all the meeting with the capital. I mean, with the toll
Tollway.
road, and then they tollway. Then they adopted. They're now one of the best in the country because of the chamber. So, to the answer to the businessman's question, municipalities and states and cities will put black businesses out of business based on that prompt payment provision. So, most of the state agencies don't have it. But as Larry stated, the Capital Development Board, there's never been a problem with prompt payment because we talked about that. We advocated for that.
Yeah. So let me just summarize, guys, and I'm going to have my co-host chime in. Also, is that one of the things that I'm very much aware of because I deal with most of those agencies that the Capital Development Board, in terms of hitting their goals, they got work to do on that area. In terms of being willing to sit down and talk about and being transparent in terms of how well we're doing. Because I remember the conversation we had with the Capital Development Board, and they stated that the trends were showing that even though monies were the level of growth in terms of projects had grown significantly, that they didn't see as many African Americans bidding as they saw Hispanics and everybody else. They were growing, but we were not. And we begged the question as to why that was the case. We had some conversation about that. So, what I would say in terms of my perception of the Capital Development Board, it's like any other agency. They got some areas they're really good at, they got some areas that they're weak at. Our job is to meet with them on an ongoing basis to take a look at where they're deficient at and help them to improve that with the willingness on their side and our side to sit down and have honest, open conversation about what's working, what's not working, and make sure we're listening to them and they're listening to us, and that we come up with solutions that help them to get a better grade. Because you could be at a C, but you want to get to an A. Because if I put my daughter to college, it's great that I'm glad you passed, but I'd much rather see you with an A for the money I spent. So we want to see the Capital Development Board and all the agencies we represent with a score of an A. They are not there. The question that we have to ask ourselves fundamentally is that what do they need to do in order to bring themselves up to a point where they get an A? And I think we agree that the work is going to be put in terms of moving those numbers in terms of Black participation, whether it be engineering, professional services, or in construction. And it may be some responsibility we're going to have to take. If we're not bidding, we need to find out why our members aren't bidding. So there's work to be done on both sides. And that's why the meetings on an ongoing basis was a critical part of our analysis, because that's going to give us the insight to meet on an ongoing basis to help rectify the problems and report back to our listening audience and to our members all across the state of Illinois. I land and I'll pass that on to MC and Lord Mike with any comments they have. Then we're going to see if we have any comments from our listening audience that they may have questions on and kind of keep it moving. So why don't you go ahead, Lord Mike, if you can keep it quick and
Oh,
also.
absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
as
And I
soon
know
as,
we're coming up
as soon as
against a
we
break. So if I could, I'd love to just share their comment from LinkedIn when we come back from break. It's the Wake Up Show.
Please.
5740-4430 now.
Welcome back to the Wake Up Show Chicago, powered by the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce. Before we went to break, our own illustrious Lord Mike was on the mic. Go ahead, Doc. I'm passing it back to you.
Peace, man. So they made the comment, and I think this kind of harkens back to their willingness to be engaged and be as transparent as they can be, hopefully, and to the hope that we have that we can actually make some progress by working together and learning from each other. Their last comment was the way that the data was pulled and reported is inconsistent with the Capital Development Board's contracting methods. So they're working actively with the Illinois Commission on Equity and Inclusion to correct those to correct the CDB data that's bringing in and that's reported on. I don't know exactly what all that means, but it just shows me that they're engaged enough to hear us, this conversation we're having right now today in real time, and then they're giving us feedback in real time too. So as far as the hope and keeping hope alive, it gives me hope that we can stay connected like that and be at the places that are important to actually start creating the real change there.
Absolutely. MC.
Doc, when we talk about how these guys can improve, oftentimes when we get ready to introduce a new product, we have this statement that we say, well, what does that look like? Let's unpack that entire thing, from beginning to end. And so I think one of the things that is needed is we need mandated reporting on these numbers and accountability. How is this thing being policed? I remember last year when we were at Lobby Day and we were talking about the Justice 40 initiative. And part of that initiative is to say that, this money that President Biden signed for infrastructure, that 40% has to be spent with minorities, and the people who are doing that work has to be, has to look like us, has to look like the communities that they're servicing. And I remember when we were sitting in the meeting last year, we asked them how well are they doing upon that goal and who's in charge of it. And they didn't have anybody that was in charge of it. So, I think that one of the things we have to do is to unpack not only what are the goals that they have to meet, but what does the reporting back looks like? How often does it happen? It needs to be mandated because we need that type of accounting. Just like when you guys were sitting in the room with them, and they didn't have those questions to answer. Somebody needs to be held accountable there to always make sure that they stay in the line. So I'll land with that, Doc.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just go just for clarity, because I want to make sure that we represent what we say as accurate as possible. I think when you mentioned that comment, that was the Department of Transportation. I think the Capital Development Board with Jesse Martinez and others do report their numbers. And one of the things I'd say about the Capital Development Board is that when you have a contract and you go out and you get an award and you don't meet your particular goal, they are the few agencies that will fundamentally cancel that contract and go on to the next bidder, even though that next bidder is higher. They do that on a consistent basis. That is to be applauded in terms of their commitment to make sure that when they put a 15, 20% goal on it, that if you come back and say you can't reach that goal, and you haven't taken the 5 steps for the good faith effort, then the Capital Development Board is one of the few agencies that will move on to the next bidder, and we hope they continue that. You know, Jim Underwood is gone, and we'll have a new person coming in, and I hear that this person may be an African American female. Now, just because she's African American, don't mean that all of a sudden the floodgates are going to open up. It simply means that she may have some insight and she may be willing to work with us to make sure things are better. I think that the Capital Development Board wants to do a better job. I think we're going to hold them accountable to make sure it happens and keep pushing the envelope. MC, do we have any callers?
We do not have any callers on the line at the
Okay.
moment, sir.
Okay, then we will continue the conversation. Vincent, I'll kind of pass the ball to you in terms of any final comments that you have in reference to how do we make it better? Because I think the challenge for the chamber is one thing for us to meet, it's one thing for us to have a conversation. It's the follow up and follow through and the accountability that we want to make sure happens so we can see tangible results at the end of this process. So, any other insight that you have?
Well, you know what, Larry, what we didn't do, and I'll do it real briefly and real quickly. Let me preface my statement by saying the Capital Development Board, out of the 108 state agencies and associated universities and colleges, is one of the best. I'll say that again. It's one of the best. The total budget was $6 billion, 475,197,000. But the African American male spend was 41 million. The African American female spend was 11 million. That's a total of 53 million. Now, if you compare that with the Hispanic males, 45 million. Hispanic females, 8 million, for a total of 53,706. A little bit higher. But the figure I want to highlight is female Caucasian. They spend $69,690,720 with white women. That's more than the total of black men and women combined, and it's also more than the total of Hispanic men and women combined. You know, I know a little something about that. When they put white women in the Hammersmith Amendment, I was Gus Savage's legislative assistant in Washington. I was on the floor when they put white women into the traditionally minority. It used to only be blacks, Aleutians, Native Americans. Now it has been obfuscated. So even though there's hope with the Capital Development Board as it sits right now in real time, they're one of the best. So that should say something about the total state spend. Now, to your question about how do we solve it, we solve it by educating our people, by doing exactly what we're doing today, talking about it. And they can go to that site, 30 ILCS 575/8F, and see it in black and white for yourself. Sometimes when you see it, it motivates people, Larry, to maybe call the chamber's number and join. So that's how I see. Confront it, get a team together to analyze it, and let's go get our 40 acres and a mule. And it's a Democrat, what's this? It's a National Democratic Convention in this city. And I'm so glad, Larry, that you have a political action committee, because there are no permanent enemies. There are no permanent friends. The only permanent interest. And the Black Chamber is serving very well for our interests. And so thank you for having what you do, Larry, and your team and all across the state and the fantastic guests that you have assembled here. I'm honored to be a small part of whatever this is going to look like in the future. Thank you
Yeah.
for the
Well,
opportunity.
let me go to Maddie Carter with any comment, because Maddie, you have a background in project management at the same time, so you know a little bit about construction from a historical perspective. So
Yeah.
give us, kind of your thinking. We know that the Capital Building Board has some deficiencies. I think when we start meeting with them, you and this team and other contractors should be a part of the conversation. They talked about pre-qualification. They talked about meetings that's going on. So give us your take on what you think we could do to make sure that we're getting tangible results back to our community.
For one, I would love to be a part of those emails that comes out when they're ready to do more meetings about this. As a Black minority woman, we need contracts more with cities, with the state. We need that opportunity. So I definitely am available to be a part of those meetings that possibly will come up and bring about more minority women or that needs this assistance. So we definitely need more opportunity as contractors to get these jobs. As you say, mine is more in project management, but there are women out here that are electricians. There are women out here that are construction managers. We are out here doing it. And as when me speaking for our women, for the Black women and women of minority, of all minority, we need that opportunity as well.
There's a young lady who's in the steel business with us in Peoria.
That's Bridget. That's
Bridget,
Bridget Booker.
yeah, Bridget Booker,
Wayne.
and we're
Wayne.
going to make sure Bridget's in those meetings. So, Perrin, give us your take on what you think we can do to make things better. With any closing comments you have.
Well, one of the things in my experience is with dealing with black contractors, because I've done with black contractors, is that a lot of them are don't want to get involved with the unions. And in order to have these contracts with the state of Illinois, you need to be a union shop. And it's all about the paperwork. And if we train our black businesses to have the proper paperwork and do those things, they have a better opportunity to say when a contract becomes available, they have the qualification to do that. And that's critical with paperwork. And that's if you look at all the things happening um, with this board is the paperwork. They require you to have a lot of paperwork, and traditionally, a lot of businesses lack on paperwork. So we can make sure that they have the proper paperwork, and that's what we can do to help improve the situation.
Yeah, that's one area of that we have to focus in on. And I think what they're open to is any suggestions that we have that would make this thing better. We should have our suggestions. We should have our agenda. We should go meet with them. We should hold them accountable. And what I do give a shout out to them is that the Capability Board is involved in the conversation already because they got someone who's responding to questions, and we commend them for that, for being engaged. And so I'll put it out to them is that we're looking forward to setting up our next meeting within the next couple of weeks to bring our team together, whether it be by Zoom or as in person, to sit down and to talk about what's working, what's not working, and some of the new initiatives that may come out of this where we can begin to see even greater results overall. And I do think that the Capital Building Board has a good team. There's still work to be done. And our job is to hold people accountable, to push the needle, and to make America even better by making sure that there, like I said, there's no discrimination when it comes to collecting taxes. There ought to be no discrimination when it comes to contracts. There are things for us to learn from them, and they are to learn from us at the same time. Our ultimate goal is that we want the state of Illinois to be the best state in the union, but it can only be the best state when it learns to listen to its members and it improves to make sure that there's a level playing field for everyone, that white males can't get 95% of all the contract or 90% of the contract. And then we're fighting over the 5 to 10% among women, African American, Hispanics, and Asians. We have to do a better job. I commend the all of you for taking the time out of your schedule to be a part of this. I'm gonna let my guy in the house, MC. You got the last moment, man. You tell us where we go from there. I think we got We started late, so we got 2 minutes extra, right?
You know what? I wish that was the case. But you know what? I want to thank everybody for listening in. Next week, we're going to continue the conversation. But I also want you to visit us at ilbcc.org because our yearly annual cruise on Lake Michigan is coming up very,
Absolutely.
very soon. You
Yeah.
need to be
Hey,
on the boat. We had luminaries there. We had politicians there. We had CEOs. We had the people. Wait. There was one CEO said, "You don't want to talk to me. You want to talk to my procurement person who actually issues out the contracts." And they had them on the boat last year.
they're
So,
going to be on the boat this year.
they're going to be on the boat this year. So you need to
Get your
hit out.
tickets early. Don't wait until the last moment because we sold out. We had 20, 30 people trying to get on the boat at the last moment. We couldn't pull it
Literally.
off. So call, get your tickets now for the cruise on June the 27th. Again, to our listening audience of WVON, thanks for listening. Feel free to contact us and let us know what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong so we can improve ourselves because we do have the common vision of strengthening Black people and making sure that we have a seat at the table. And like we say, if you're not at the table,
On
you're
the
on the
menu.
menu. Hey, take care, guys.